Hello, I'm Grace Williams. I interviewed my mom, Joanna Williams, who was 50, my dad, Taylor Williams, who was 47, and my little sister, Hopi Williams, who was 15. They all answered 2 questions and just recorded them separately in a video since I am not here with them. And then my little sister, it was a debate to get her to film it, so she actually only answered 1 question. But hopefully that is okay.
Hello, I am Joanna Williams, Grace Williams' mother, and I am 50 years old, very old. I chose to answer the first question, how did racism start? And I was thinking of the Tower of Babel. Genesis 11:4 says, "Then they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth.'" I think within those scriptures, it shows that the people at that time wanted to be their own God. I feel like that's the crux of the gospel, is you have to make that choice between letting God be the Lord of your life or you continuing to stay and be the God of your own life. So I think in a way to protect them from their pride and from that drive to continue to do that, that's why God separated people, gave them different languages and scattered them throughout the earth. The second question I chose to answer was, how did any race get chosen as the greater race? And I was thinking of, in the Bible, Israel was chosen to be set apart, so we could understand our role as Christians, to be holy, to be different, to be foreigners in this place. But then when Jesus came, he made the gospel accessible to all races. There was no supreme race anymore to say. But unfortunately, because people are prideful and they want power, that they take advantage of vulnerable people groups and exploit them for their own advantages. I guess I just chose to highlight, probably in America, how white people would most likely see themselves as the supreme race, definitely. And if you think of African Americans, and it could very easily have been swapped had the circumstances been different, but Europeans were educated and they believed and they knew best. Even if you look at evangelism, unfortunately, not only did they try to evangelize with the gospel, but then they would also try to turn people into help them to be more their way of thinking, their traditions, the way they dress, instead of trying to find a way to protect the people groups that they were evangelizing, their own cultures or traditions, personalities, that there's a lot of beauty in the way that we are different too, that unfortunately they tried to erase or make them conform to European white people way of doing things. So I think I answered those.
Hey, my name is Taylor Williams, and I am Grace Williams' dad. I'm 47 years old. I think I'd answer the first question of just the impact of racism that I've seen with my eyes in my lifetime and how it's changed over time. Number one is 1977. I was born in Gadsden, Alabama, just north of Birmingham in the Deep South. So deeply rooted in stories of parents that saw water fountains and bathrooms set aside for white and black. I've heard grandparents talk of Ku Klux Klan and the extreme racism. I then saw it a little bit more moderate, which is segregation. And I'm thankful that this next generation has moved even further on that spectrum as we move towards acceptance. I think that's a brilliant thing that I've seen that transition in my own lifetime that I'm thankful for. Miles and miles to go. I still see it very present in subtle and unique ways, sometimes still very apparent, but now living in the north here in Canton, Ohio, it would be more on the segregation side spectrum versus the extreme what we used to know as racism. But it's still on that spectrum, and we have miles to go for sure. The root of it, I think, is always the question, and from a Christian point of view, I do believe the scripture makes it clear that it's rooted in pride and power. From the very beginning, there's something in us that wants to have power over someone else. Cain and Abel, many stories through scripture, the disciples wrestling who's going to be greatest, needing a king, always needing someone to have power over us. It's always rooted in power, and whichever race or color has the power is ultimately going to set the narrative on what is accepted and not accepted, what color is accepted, not accepted, what race is accepted or not accepted, what countries are accepted or not accepted. You can fill in the blank. Unfortunately, I do feel until Jesus returns, that tension's always going to be within us. Whomever holds the power most of the times through wealth will get to set that standard. That's why I love the kingdom, the royal priesthood of believers that we're part of, where Jesus invites us to a new way of thinking in this kingdom. Even though we're still this side of heaven, there can be a new kingdom where there's no longer Jew or Roman or American or Canadian or fill in the blank. There is no longer white or black or slave or free. We are a royal priesthood. So a couple of thoughts there and a couple of those questions. Hope that's helpful.
Hello, my name's Hope. I'm 15 years old and I live in Canton, Ohio. And I know Grace because she's my sister. I think I've seen racism just normalized throughout the years because it just doesn't really matter. It's verbal, so it doesn't really affect. It's verbal now, so it doesn't really affect the people.